first question, that is, what is GRC?
Different people interpret GRC differently depending on the circumstance. It is a collaboration throughout the organization.
So how did your GRC journey start, Sudipto? Talking about this, the evolution and how the GRC space is changing, how do you maintain that, the implementations which you're doing are relevant as well as scalable for the future?
It's been a long journey. When I started off with GRC was more of a compliance thing. From a risk solution, it has moved on to risk quantification, it has moved into ESG. So there's been a huge transition. With all these, implementations have become complicated, it's become more intensive. So it's become the ERP of the world now.
Hi everyone, my name is Himani Yadav and I welcome you all to this new series called as GRC Unveiled, where we talk with experts and try to understand the dynamics of GRC. So for the first episode, we have Sudipto Bose with us. Sudipto started his journey with cybersecurity some 18 years back, and then he worked on identity management, access management. Later, he also transitioned into cryptography, SIEMs, and then GRC. Currently, he's the director of Archer IRM Professional Services team in Bangalore. Hi Sudipto, welcome to the series.
Thanks, Himani.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm good as well. So Sudipto, I want to start a conversation with the first question, that is, what is GRC?
That's an interesting question. It is interesting because different people interpret GRC differently depending on the circumstance. Sometimes you observe that the same person also has a different interpretation of GRC given the context in which he is. Ultimately, any enterprise adds some kind of a value, both within the organization and outside. And there are many participating functions which get together to deliver this value. Any risk which entails all these different functions then contribute towards GRC. In this process of adding value, it's not just these functions, it is also the management responsibility, the leadership responsibility. This activity should be driven from the top, and all participating functions should participate in it. It's not just the responsibility of the risk officer or the compliance officer. It is a collaboration throughout the organization to understand what risk entails in the process of delivering this value and how should we be mitigating it. So this entire exercise would then contribute towards GRC.
Okay. So how did your GRC journey start, Sudipto?
So this started by accident. There was an acquisition of a captive unit of a bank, which our organization, the company which I was working for, did at that point in time. And I was entrusted with this responsibility of transitioning that division out and get it integrated to the company. And in that process, I got involved in GRC.
So Sudipto, as you said, you transition into GRC by chance. Now you're leading the global team. So how has this journey been?
It's been a long journey. When I started off with GRC was more of a compliance thing. The realm of GRC was largely compliance. From there, the GRC space itself has evolved. Products have become very sophisticated. If you now look at Archer, for example, from a risk solution, it has moved on to risk quantification, it has moved into ESG. So there's been a huge transition on the products itself, on the GRC products itself. In the consulting space also, there has been a lot of changes. There has been a lot of cloud adaptation. There has also been a lot of Internet of Things. Data needs to be more available. It also needs to hence be secured at different levels. We also observe that towards delivering an integrated risk management solution, we have to make very complex integration with disparate systems to add value or to really represent the risk posture of an organization well. So yeah, overall it's become very complex. Also, there is many times there is a necessity of carrying a snapshot of one of these disparate systems into Archer itself to give a better view, a better representation of how the risk posture looks like. With all these, implementations have become complicated, it's become more intensive, so it's become the ERP of the world now.
Talking about this, the evolution and how the GRC space is changing, how do you maintain that, the implementations which you're doing are relevant as well as scalable for the future?
So the products itself have integrated a lot of things into the GRC world, right? So which means that we as a team have also scaled ourselves up to address many of these areas. Additionally, what we have done is we have started changing the methodology in which we operate. So from a full waterfall kind of implementation, we have moved into an area which is partial waterfall, partial agile. We are now moving into a user story based approach where we are trying to kind of abstract customers from the technicalities. We want them to be focused mostly on the functional areas. We break it down into smaller functional pieces so that it becomes easy for customers to really represent in a right way what they would want us to deliver to them. At the end, once that representation is done, we kind of translate that into a solution which is easy for them to visualize. That way we have reduced the time to value. So from the point where we have started a discussion with the customer to the point where we are delivering it to them, we have shortened that time span. So that's the way we are trying to ensure that we are adding faster value to customers.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Sudipto. So Sudipto, now I want to shift some gears and delve into leadership questions. So what is leadership to you?
So leadership is all about ensuring that we provide a psychologically safe workplace to new leaders, enable them in a manner that they can take up responsibilities on their own, deliver against those responsibilities, and acknowledge the fact that we may not always get the desired outcome in that exact manner in which we expect, which is okay, as long as we all accept the fact that new leaders will make some mistakes, there will be deviations in outcome, but we will learn from those mistakes and move forward. I think that's the best way in which we can enable leaders.
Is there any specific person, which you have as an inspiration?
Oh, yes. When I was starting off as a new leader, we were pretty junior in an organization which had a huge hierarchy. Most of the times we landed up interacting with C-level people and with general managers, and there was a vast difference between the experience and the approach to a certain issue. And there were times when we were sidelined because of that. Ultimately, when a conversation of that kind got very intense, we had our leader, he was a general manager then, and at a point in time when we felt that the situation was getting very tough and we expected him to intervene, he would be there on the spot for us to kind of help us. It was really inspiring to see a gentleman who was managing so many new leaders like us, was generally working with close to 500, 600 emails a day, and he would be there and intervene, help us at the very point where we needed help. Was really, really amazing. He would let us the freedom to work on our own, but he would be there for us when we really needed him. So he was really an inspiration.
Wow, really an amazing person. So Sudipto, how do you plan to inspire our young leaders?
So rather in continuation to your previous question, how do I see leadership? The only way that we can really inspire young leaders or get them into this act of becoming new leaders, right? The only way of doing that is to allow them the space, allow them the freedom to work. Obviously, there is a certain amount of skilling which is available, and there are ways to upskill people. I think the skilling is not as important in leadership roles, perhaps, as the ability to stick your nose into a situation and be ready to accept the outcome, or be ready to accept what comes out of it. There may be situations where where the outcome wouldn't be up to the expectation, and it is then important for us to kind of ensure that the person doesn't get bogged down by it, but understands that this is part of the learning journey, and continue moving forward. I think that's the only way we inspire young leaders, new leaders, and get them into the leadership roles.
So Sudipto, we are towards the end of this conversation. So I want to wrap up with asking my last question.
Sure.
And that is, what are the skills anyone should have to become a very good GRC consultant or a professional in this space?
First of all, he should be very articulate. Being a very good listener is very important, because most of the times, because we have prior experience, so we are running a particular solution or a particular situation in our mind without appreciating the fact that this particular situation, this customer may be very different. So to be a good listener, to be able to dissociate yourself with any kind of a solution when you are basically understanding the requirements is very important. It's also very important to be able to be a good negotiator. That's because there will be times when the customer's existing processes may not be best suited towards technology enablement. And as long as we understand that, as long as we are able to successfully guide customers towards a newer approach, towards a newer process without antagonizing them, I think that's something which is really, really required for a consultant to do his job very well.
So Sudipto, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for you to being here on the show and sharing the insights with us. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much.
Oh, sure. Likewise. Thank you for getting me into this conversation.
Thank you.